Hey guys, in 2020 I made a video talking about whether or not the single player in EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 was worth it or not. Whether it was worth picking up the game for and how it compared to the original Battlefront series in terms of single player content and replayability. Well, it's 2021, a little over a year later, and today I want to talk about whether or not EA's first Battlefront title is worth picking up for the single player experience. But before we get into the video, if you guys would like to support the channel and the other creative endeavors that we do, I ask you to check out our brand new live action anime inspired series, My Neck. My Neck is a 6-episode live action show on Prime Video. It's a live action series that parodies anime while telling an original story that is absolutely ridiculous and funny. If you like anime, comedy, or live action films like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World or Kung Fu Hustle, you should give My Neck a watch. It's a super fun series that's been getting a lot of great press and feedback from those who have already seen it. So if you're into any of the stuff we mentioned, or just want to help the channel grow, give My Neck a chance and we'll love you immensely. But for now, let's get back into the video. So in our last video, we determined that EA Star Wars Battlefront 2 was totally worth picking up for its offline single player experience. It had a campaign, a fully fleshed out instant action mode, a starfighter mode, and much more. It also allowed the player to use their character skins from multiplayer along with all the weapons and abilities from multiplayer. But what about Battlefront 2015? With Battlefront 2015 no longer being updated, the single player experience that exists in the game is complete, meaning there won't be any more updates to it unless of course you play on PC and use mods. For the sake of this video, we're going to talk about the main experience that was designed by the developers. Obviously the game will play much better with mods and enhance the overall experience, but for this video, we're only going to be talking about the unaltered definitive EA and DICE edition of Battlefront, meaning the base game. To start, we need to talk about what's included in the single player experience of Battlefront 2015. Battlefront 2015 has 5 major modes for its offline experience, not including the tutorial. If we include the tutorial, which can be played offline in single player, then we have 6 modes in total. But aside from the tutorial, let's break down the 5 major modes that the game has. Training is the first single player mode in Battlefront 2015. It consists of 5 different missions that has the player learn the core mechanics of the game. From piloting starfighters to controlling heroes, training puts the player in a mini-story in order to carry out a series of objectives to ease the player into the game's mechanics. Each mission is different and unique, but because it's story-based and predictable, there isn't much replayability to it. The missions themselves are cool though. For one mission, you'll be taking down AT-AT walkers as a snowspeeder as they tread the fields of Hoth. Another mission will have you blasting X-Wings out of the sky as an AT-ST on Sullust. These missions are awesome the first time you play them, but then there isn't much after that since the pathing, the difficulty, and objectives never change. These missions are designed to teach the player, so what happens in them is pretty much the same every time you play them. Unlike in a campaign or an objective-based game mode where things can play out differently each time you play, training ends up being a one-and-done experience. You can play it for a high score or to beat it in a quick time, but that's probably not what you want to play Battlefront for unless you're a speedrunner. The idea of a Battlefront single-player mode is to watch these unpredictable battles play out in a number of different ways, and that's not going to happen in training. The next mode is Missions. This is a team deathmatch based mode where both teams fight against each other to collect more tokens than their opposing team by defeating the other team's troopers. Basically, you kill an enemy and collect a token. The goal is to get 100 tokens before the other team. So defeating an enemy and not collecting the token they drop won't grant you the token that you need. The AI gets tougher the more tokens you collect, and they kinda act as classes. You have the heavies, the snipers, the jump trooper, they're mostly all here. The game mode could have benefited more from a leader class like an Imperial officer or hero though, some sort of boss-like enemy. The mode itself is pretty fine, though a lot of folks had issues with the token system, but I personally never minded it. It allowed for more intense battles as more AI show up as both teams collect tokens. The drawback is that it's only playable on 4 maps. Had there been more maps and enemy types for this mode, it could have been a lot better in my opinion. The third mode is Survival. Like any great shooter game, you gotta have a survival mode. You won't be fighting zombies here though. Instead you'll play as a lone rebel survivor across 6 different maps. It's fitting because very rarely could I see this being a situation an Imperial soldier would find themselves in, where they would have to survive waves of rebel infantry. Anyways, you play as a rebel soldier and must defend yourself against waves of Imperial soldiers. You'll be fighting against regular infantry, special infantry, such as the classes from Missions mode with increased health, AT-STs, and TIE fighters. There's actually a nice variety of enemies here. The downside is that it's only 15 waves long, so don't expect to be playing each map until the end of time. This mode does have more replayability than missions though, simply because there's a lot more happening here, along with more enemy types. Sometimes a pod will fall from the sky that will contain 3 items. You have to activate it and defend it from Imperials until the meter fills up and the items come out. If the Imperials get a hold of it, you must retake control of it, otherwise the pod will blow up and your items will be gone. The items are usually really helpful in dealing with groups of enemies or the AT-STs, so getting one is actually extremely beneficial, giving survival mode a little extra dynamic rather than hiding all the damn time. With the wide variety of enemy types and expansive maps, this mode is pretty fun. The next game mode comes from Skirmish, a game mode that the Soloplayersmatter group fought for and ultimately got after a year of fighting with EA on the importance of solo play in Battlefront. Skirmish contains the 2 multiplayer flagship modes, Walker Assault and Fighter Squadron, playable offline and single player. Like its multiplayer counterpart, Walker Assault is played between the Rebels and Imperials. The player can select their faction and weapons, but not their loadout unless they're connected to the internet. As the Rebels, your team must activate uplinks to call in Y-Wings to bomb the incoming AT-AT walkers before they reach the 3rd phase. As the Empire, you have to escort the walker through 3 phases to reach the Rebels' final position by deactivating their uplinks and defending the walker against attacks. In this mode, the AI controls infantry, vehicles, and starfighters. It's actually a lot of fun and immersive. You really get drawn into the world of Star Wars by playing this mode. I do have some issues with it though, the first being the bugs. Some maps have more bugs than others, which really hinders the experience. On the Rebel base of Hoth, Rebels get stuck in corridors and therefore don't join the action during the match, meaning what's supposed to be this big chaotic battle ends up being 6 or 7 guys on the battlefield fighting with each other because the other soldiers are off stuck in a wall. On Solus, the pathing of the Empire on Phase 2 was just straight up broken. The Empire can't advance from this position in Phase 2, allowing the Rebels to stockpile Y-Wings and nearly take out the walkers by the 2nd phase on this map. Also, a developer said that an AT-ST got stuck under the map when they programmed Skirmish, and it never got fixed. So there's supposed to be a whole ass chicken walker stomping Rebels' faces in, but it's underneath the damn map. Hero pickups also choose when they want to work. When you pick up one, you have a 50-50 chance that you'll be able to play as a hero, which sucks. Second, you can't select your character skin like in multiplayer. The game randomly assigns you a soldier to play as. As the Empire, you're just given the default skin. You won't get to play as an Imperial officer or that sweet alien skin you unlocked in multiplayer, which of course also sucks. Lastly, the amount of ground AI is a bit low. The game accounts for 40 players in total, including yourself on the scoreboard. But the way this works is that troopers are in a queue. About 8 to 12 soldiers from each team can be out on the field at once, meaning there are never actually 40 troopers running around like in multiplayer. It's more like a 12 versus 12 match. Once an AI dies, another one in the queue takes its place, and so they keep swapping out, which is why there are kills and deaths accounted for each and every AI soldier on the scoreboard. Luckily, it doesn't always feel like that though. A lot of the time there is enough going on the battlefield that it still feels chaotic and epic, especially that the AI takes to the skies and does strafing runs on you, giving you a nice illusion that there's a lot more going on than there actually is. Also, the good news is there are 7 maps you can play Walker Assault on, including the 3 DLC maps, Jakku, Twilight on Hoth, and Survival on Endor. I still find myself playing offline Walker Assault despite all the things I've been bitching about. It's not perfect by any means, but it does get the job done, especially for someone looking for that larger scale Star Wars battle. Last but not least is Fighter Squadron. Fighter Squadron has the player take up starfighters and battle it out in the skies. It's essentially team deathmatch, but with starfighters. The goal is to eliminate all the enemy starfighters before the time runs out. The difficulty determines the amount of starfighters in the sky. On Master difficulty, you get the full 40 player experience that can get very hectic really quick. You and the enemy team can also play as heroes. Unfortunately, it's only the Millennium Falcon in Slave 1, but it's still awesome seeing those ships shooting down your team. Occasionally, you'll have to attack or defend a shuttle, which will decrease the enemy's reinforcements by a decent amount if you destroy it, or decrease your reinforcements if the enemy is successful in destroying your shuttle. This mode can sometimes get a little boring and repetitive though, especially on the lower difficulties, but also a pain in the ass on the harder difficulties because the AI is a sharpshooter and will blast your ass out of the sky hella quick. There doesn't seem to be much of a middle ground. You can only really play this game mode on easy or super damn hard. It's solid though, and it does get the job done as an offline starfighter mode. So with 5 main offline modes, is EA Star Wars Battlefront 2015 worth getting for the single player experience? Well, for someone who is expecting and wanting a great single player experience in a video game, no. But for a Star Wars fan who doesn't mind some glitches and is looking to roleplay their own battle fantasies by getting immersed into the world of Star Wars, yeah. I can only really recommend getting this game for its single player offerings if you're willing to look past a lot of flaws and just want to immerse yourself into a galaxy far, far away. The game's single player offerings can only be enjoyed by a fan of Star Wars, especially one who just wants to invest themselves in the Battlefront universe. It doesn't really compare to the classics. The AI is fairly predictable, and there just isn't enough substance here to really even begin to compare it. But as a Star Wars fan, as someone who wants to experience blaster battles and graphics that look like they're straight out of the movie, this is totally for you. The thing is, the graphics and gameplay are superb. Controlling your character, the ships, the vehicles, and the heroes all feel super polished and nice. It's really the AI, or lack thereof, that hinders this from being a game for more casual gamers looking for an interesting single player experience. Personally, for someone like me, this is fine, especially that the game is $20 or less. I would say between $5 and $10, this is a fine game for the single player experience. It's okay. Had there been more polish and content in Skirmish mode, then maybe my answer would be a bit different. But at its current state, I can't give it much more value from all the things I've discussed. To summarize, EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2015 is a game for hardcore Star Wars fans that really want to experience the world of Star Wars battles in super HD awesome graphics. However, if you're a casual player looking for a good single player game, this isn't it. I enjoyed the game and will enjoy the game for many years to come, just as many other Star Wars fans will. Unless you fall into that category, you're probably not going to like the game for its single player experience due to the lack of content and substance. It's totally worth $20 for a hardcore fan looking for that Star Wars battle itch, but unless that's you, $5 is more likely the price I'd recommend picking up the game for. It's not a bad game, it just lacks the depth that other good single player games have. The single player experience was clearly an afterthought, but going into the game knowing and expecting that, I think there's still plenty of fun to be had with it, especially as a Star Wars fan. It doesn't really compare to the classics, and expecting it to will be disappointing, but if you go into it with an open mind, you should still have some fun out of the game's single player experience here. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. Whether you're looking to pick the game up yourself, or nostalgic enough to look at the game in hindsight, Battlefront 2015 will always be a special game to me, and hold a spot in my heart. I personally love the game, but it's hard to recommend it to other people for the same reasons that I have for liking the game. Let me know what you guys think of the game and its single player offerings. If the DLC expansions had been released in the single player, do you think the game would have been better? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to comment and subscribe if you want to see more videos similar to this. Also, don't forget to check out our live action anime series over on Amazon Prime Video, especially if you like anime or just want to support the channel in general. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.